Here from the Montreal headquarters of Rival, less than 48 hours removed from Alexander Usyk winning the undisputed heavyweight title once again by knockout against Daniel Dubois in their sold-out rematch at Wembley Stadium in London. The CEO of Rival that you should know very well by now, but also part, of course, of Team Usyk for several years. Russ Anber is back in town, and we figured what better time than to talk about Usyk and, of course, plenty of other boxing topics that it seems to be a very busy summer. Plenty of stories to get to, Russ. But first of all, how are you doing? Not too jet lag?
Yeah, no, not bad. My body doesn't know what time zone it's in, so it doesn't bother. It just, when it's time to go to bed, we go to bed. When it's time to wake up, we wake up. So it doesn't know where I am, And tomorrow we're going to drive to New York as well. So,
that's why you're flashing the boss coffee
just so
mug,
you
though.
remember. It's just so sometimes you forget, just in case you forget.
I know. It's a little bit difficult to forget, let me tell you. But one of the parts of...
Me, Springsteen, Yeah.
Who's more popular, you or Springsteen?
Springsteen by a bit. Just a bit.
Well, I think in the UK, you're getting up there with the amount of interviews I've seen you do already post-fight. And that's why we wanted to do a little bit of a touch-up here as well after this incredible performance and win by Usyk. Another heavyweight championship fight for him. And it seems like he's been dominating really regardless of what location he's in. But the first question I want to ask you today is that what's the feeling or what was the vibe like for you personally being involved in a sold-out stadium event, again, in hostile territory?
So first part, I love being in the UK for fights. I mean, there's just something, it's almost a flashback to when I started in this game of boxing here in Montreal, of how fervent the fans were for the fights. And they just love it. There's a real passion for boxing there. And having been there so much, I feel like I'm part of that landscape. Like when I walk into a press conference, I know all the guys there. I know all the fighters. I know all the coaches and the trainers and the media people. Hey, Russ, what's happening? And it's always nice to go back to them and talk to them and see them. It's a great homecoming, when I go down there. Similar, like New York. I go down to New York, I see everybody. So I enjoy that. As far as the fans go, as far as the number of fans in the place, Matt, I got to tell you that, and I mean, I've been in the stadium at Tottenham Hotspur for the Anthony Joshua fight. Poland was in a football stadium in the first fight with Dubois. This one at Wembley, and there's a certain iconic moment about being in a place like Wembley, obviously. But I noticed this time more than ever, walking to the ring, which, if you've never walked to the center of the pitch of a football stadium that holds 90,000 people from the dressing room, it's a long walk, bro. It's a long walk. I had 2 buckets in my hand, and I'm trying to...
You got nobody to carry the buckets with you, huh?
Well, we had. Somebody else had 2 others,
Right.
Yeah, we had
4
them,
buckets for a 12-round championship fight.
Yeah. So we're walking there, and there's, all the followers, and everyone wants to get to the ring first. Everyone wants to be right next to Usyk, and me, I'm the last one in line making my way. And during that time, I'm focusing, and I'm not looking up. I'm not paying attention or being distracted by the amount of people that are there. And I just have my head down. I'm walking, making sure I don't trip over the television cables or whatnot. And I'm walking down there just focused on the fight at hand. And I'm not paying attention with my eyes to the crowd, but my ears pay attention. And I could hear the roar of the crowd and the noise and how loud it was in there. And I realized that I don't think that there has ever been in the history of boxing a foreign fighter who has gone to a country, basically decimated their boxing landscape, if you will, and has become such an adopted hero as Usyk has been to the British fans.
Did you notice a difference with the Dubois rematch versus like when he fought Joshua in the UK?
Yeah, I think Joshua still had... don't forget, the Joshua fight was the first fight.
That's right.
Was against him, okay? That was the point where this was the real big matchup. That was his real... When you think about it, the real first big step outside of the Bellew fight, but that wasn't in a stadium. That was his first real step up in the heavyweight division against Joshua, where everyone thought Joshua could win this fight, and this is going to be big, and he's a big guy. And yeah, Joshua's popularity is through the roof, right? I mean, in fairness, there was a time when him and Canelo Alvarez were the 2 real cash cows of boxing. We agree?
Yeah, but I mean, the Usyk, I feel, has gained more fans since the Joshua first fight. Is why the reception has been better, even though he's fighting in a hostile territory, theoretically.
But he keeps proving himself. That's why. I think the one thing about the Brits, they'll give you a rough time. You're an outsider, they'll give you a rough time. But if you continue to win despite what you're up against, despite, their support of their guy, and you win, and you come back and win again, and you turn around and end up beating 3 Brits twice each, you have 6 wins over 3 guys. Eventually, they adopt you, and they've adopted Usyk as one of their own. At least that's how it felt. There was as many, if not more, people cheering for Usyk than there were for Dubois.
Do you ever have a conversation with Usyk or someone from his team about how he's able to fight so much throughout his career? When you look at his achievements, and again, this was a massive one this past weekend, but he's fought even in the cruiserweight level on in so many different fights on the road. He's like a road warrior, really, and never seems to be bothered by whichever location. Do you talk about how come he's able to zone out, if you will, of that pressure fighting elsewhere?
You know what, Matt? I actually have never had that, and I never even thought to have that, because while it's on a much smaller scale, at the start of my career, that's what I went through with Otis Grant. Like, we just fought everywhere except Montreal. I didn't even think about it, and I didn't think about it with Usyk. Okay, we're going here. Let's go. We're fighting. I don't even think about it, and I thrive on that of being in the opposing. In the opponent's home territory, I love it, and I think he does as well. And he is, we call a lot of people road warriors, but he is the quintessential road. Marco Huck in Germany, Murat Gassiev in Russia, Marius Bradis in Latvia, Bellew in Manchester, his home city, like just up 50 miles from his home city, from Liverpool, in Manchester. Anthony Joshua at Tottenham Hotspur in London. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of guys that he has fought in their hometown. And then Saudi with Fury twice, where it's not his territory either. It was kind of a neutral ground, if you will.
Right.
So, yeah.
When you look at the fight against Dubois, going in, people thought Usyk was the favorite, but you had a lot of people who thought Dubois was going to win the rematch. He was having good, confident wins since the first Usyk fight. Beat, of course, Anthony Joshua convincingly, and he seemed to really think he was able to do the same thing. How surprised were you? At what point in the fight did you feel like, okay, Usyk's really got this fight under control?
First, second round. Yeah. I thought he had it in control. I thought he controlled the press conference. I thought everything was in control. And it's funny you ask me that, because when they asked me that before the fight, what do you think? This is a new Dubois. And I said, I agree. Absolutely, it's a new Dubois. The Dubois that fought, Usyk the first time a few years ago in Poland is a different fighter today. And Usyk told him, don't be discouraged. You'll be back. You'll be a great fighter. Since then, he's had wins over Baby Miller, Hrgovic, and, a debilitating knockout of Anthony Joshua. Of course he's a different fighter. Confidence is way higher. But the Usyk that he fought 2 years ago as well didn't have 24 rounds under his belt with Tyson Fury and beaten Tyson Fury. So he's a different guy also, right? We agree? It's a different guy, right?
Isn't that part of his greatness, his ability to also improve later on in his career? Because I remember when he fought Derek Chisora, your friend, to me, that was an Usyk, the heavyweight we saw against Chisora, is nowhere near the same Usyk we saw this past weekend.
That's right.
People were really concerned after that fight that maybe he should have stayed at cruiserweight.
That's right.
And when he would face elite heavyweights, he'd be in trouble. But ever since that first Fury fight, it just seems like he's on another level.
I think the Chisora fight got us the Anthony Joshua fight. I think that's when they thought, Joshua's chances just went through the roof after seeing this. So. But yeah, he just brings things at a different level, and I saw that he was in control, and I saw, okay, he's hitting the guy. Oh, and he's making a miss. He's hitting the guy. Oh, and he's making a miss. He's hitting him. And the bull is coming forward. Dubois coming, and the Matador is just waving the flag, and he's coming into that, and he's just making him miss just enough, like an elegant Matador does, makes the bull miss, and he just let him go by just enough. And when he saw, and I think, not only does Usyk make you expend energy early that you don't want to expend, but now you're also pressing the action more than you did the first time. So you've got double exertion, and you could see early in the fight that Dubois was pumping a little bit. It was getting to him. The pace was he set a fast pace by himself, and Usyk makes you fight at a fast pace. Mike Griffin, the referee, said to me after the fight, I don't think I broke them in the clinch. I don't think I called break once in the fight. Say that in a 5-round fight that you don't call break once.
Especially for heavyweights.
Yeah. Imagine. And I think about that. And, you know, Mike is paying attention to his job, and that's what he noticed. I didn't say break once. That's something. So it was a fast pace, and I could see that Usyk was controlling it. And as the rounds were starting to go by, and the counters were starting to come early, the counters were coming. Dubois was hopping back. Oh, Dubois was seeing it. Oh, moving away. Oh! All of a sudden, Dubois throws a punch. He stayed there. Boom! The counter comes back. Oh, he stayed there. Oh, now I'm seeing the range starting to get closer. And I felt comfortable in the corner. I felt comfortable with what we were doing. You know, I didn't feel any stress. Sometimes you feel stress in a corner, Matt. Like working with Shakur, you know, a week earlier. Oh man, this guy Zepeda's not letting up. He's right there. Oh, then I see Shakur go to the ropes, and he's blocking. Oh, he's got him figured out. All of a sudden, the stress level goes down somewhat when you see that he's controlling the opponent. So. Yeah, I felt very comfortable early in the fight.
I want to get to Shakur a bit later on. Now, when you look at Usyk, the way he was able to finalize that knockout punch against Daniel Dubois, you've seen punches thrown overhand at times, hooks. This one was like a cross between a hook and an overhand. And in the post-fight press conference, you heard him a little bit wanting to reference that punch and call it the Ivan, I believe, but then was looking for you and he couldn't find you. He goes, Russ, and we couldn't find you in the press conference. Yeah. But can you expand on what exactly that punch was and the technique behind it and the history behind it?
I would love to. So this is when I was working with him in getting ready for the Michael Hunter fight.
This is a few years back now already.
This is a few years back. This would go back to 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember working on the bag with him using the small bag mitts. The first time I gave him the small bag mitts, he says,
"Oh, what's this?" RB5 bag mitts.
Okay, if you want to do the plug, yes, RB5 bag mitt. And I started working with him on that punch as a punch that's a guaranteed safe punch to throw for either a southpaw against a right-hander or right-hander against other, if you execute it properly. Because even if the opponent is able to block it, there's virtually no way he can slip it. You know, you're gonna hit something. So it's gonna be something that's gonna give you a chance to land something afterwards, or it's gonna do damage. And he himself nicknamed it Ivan. You know, I showed him the shot. He said, "Oh, like Ivan." And he had to explain to me later why he named it that. And we've kept this a secret for years to that punch. And we would yell it from the corner, Ivan, time for Ivan. You know, and we'd yell it out. If you watch the clip of the Tony Bellew fight, hits him with that same shot. You know, there's many fights that happen that he uses that and it lands.
So it's not exactly an overhand shot. It's kind of a cross between an overhand and a hook.
It's kind of a hook with the backhand. It comes around. It doesn't come in front of your body like a hook may. It doesn't come up high like this. It kind of comes around this way, you know, and because you're a southpaw, it's coming from the back foot, which you could throw this, if you're orthodox, would be the same kind of a hook. It would have the same trajectory as a hook if you were a right-hander throwing a left hook. But in this case, because it's coming from behind, it opens up the whole body, so you have a much wider range where you can land that shot on. And it's difficult to evade. And
because I saw Dubois almost, if you look a little bit closely,
his hands up,
because he said he's expecting a straight shot.
Yeah,
and because his hand is closer to his face this way, now he's open around it.
That's right
for the hook.
That's exactly
and
right.
Ivan. That's why you could tell, like, oh man, he never saw it coming.
Never
afterwards.
saw it. That's the beauty of it, right? Yeah. And you have no idea, Matt. Nobody knows until we've mentioned it right now how much it means to me that he remembered that from 2018, and that's been our thing in the dressing room. I said to him, "Is Ivan ready?" He says, "Ivan is ready." I said, "Okay, that's good." You know, so he knows about it, and we have that connection that I can just say that, and it works. And he remembered right away because Russ, he wanted to talk about, and I so regret not being in the press conference, which I had no idea was going on. I'm in the dressing room. All of a sudden, I thought he went for his drug testing. I turn around, and all of a sudden, everybody's gone. I say, well, "Where's everybody?" Oh, they went to the press conference. Where's that? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, great. We don't know. So I miss that, and that bothers me because in the fight in Saudi, the rematch with Fury, he looks for me in the press conference and says, "You dushnila."
Was that after the first fight or the rematch?
The rematch, I believe.
The rematch. I thought it was the first one.
I think it was the rematch. And he said, "You dushnila." And the best translation he could get out of that was to call it like me and his coach were buzzkill. You know, we were buzzkill. But the real translation is we're ball busters. That was the thing. We're just on him all the time. Do this, do that. So he called us.
Yeah, that was for your training camp experience. experience with Fury in Spain. So I believe that was before the first fight against Fury, but ultimately he had success.
Right. That's right. It would have been after the first fight. You're right. That's right. First fight,
When we look at Usyk, you talk about his relationship post-fight, so many people were saying, oh, he's 38 years old. He doesn't have to accomplish anything more than what he's already accomplished as an undisputed champion at cruiserweight, at heavyweight, beating some of the best. But I don't know how you feel, Russ, and it seems like some people still were questioning somewhat his legacy before this fight. There seems to be no doubt now that when people consider him, and you have Muhammad Ali behind you in the frame, but he's maybe not Ali, but he's right up there when you look at some of the top 10 heavyweights in the history right now based on his record.
Matt, I saw one comment where somebody who, of course, all these guys that leave negative comments on things never use their real name, huh? It's always some phony name they use on social media that you can't follow who it is, who has to leave some smart-ass remark. But I saw a smart-ass remark where it says, come on, get serious. Based on what? What guys did he beat? He's only had 22 fights. You can't consider him an all-time great with 22 fights. Okay. On the contrary, when you look at the accomplishments that he has done inside of 22 fights, that's what's made him great. It's not that he's had 22 fights all against taxi drivers and then one fight against Dubois or Joshua that made him great. No, he's been undisputed in 2 weight classes now and has beaten the best that the division has to offer.
Correct.
That's what you have to look, and he's only had 22 fights and did that.
And the 2 wins against Fury, people have Fury right up there as being really one of the toughest heavyweights to face.
That's right, and he is one of the toughest. And I think Tyson would always be a tough heavyweight to face in any era. First of all, not only on his size, but on his boxing ability. I've always said a big guy shouldn't be able to box that nice. He's so big, but he does. He's got fluidity to him. He's got some drive to him. And by his own admission, Usyk is a middleweight. Well, he's not.
And he seems to definitely have become a full-fledged, powerful heavyweight.
Powerful heavyweight. And now, at 38 years of age, and let's just look back at his last 3 fights. The first Fury fight, the second Fury fight, and now the Dubois fight. Each one has been an improved performance.
Correct.
You're supposed to be getting older. You're supposed to be getting worse. He's getting better. He just scored what I think, you can factually check it, but he just scored his fastest KO of his championship reign. Wow. He hasn't stopped anybody in a shorter span than he did this, and he's 38. And I think that bothered him when he was, there was insulted of being an old man at 38. And you have to be careful, when you talk about age, because in our day, it always used to be, when you looked at a fighter, regardless of what, age is catching up with him. And you would say that after seeing a poor performance, not a great performance.
Or it's mostly wear and tear, right? Because there's some guys...
and the wear and tear.
They'll be 30 years old, but they'll be so much more damage from going into brutal wars or sparring or not proper training. And you talked about this with Usyk, is that the discipline this man has outside the ring, and it's something you've talked about before on previous podcasts and for years about how much if you want to be a true pro, you have to do this a 365-day athlete life, not just when you get into camp.
Correct.
And I think that's what Usyk does
extremely well. And if you look at this fight, what did he get hit with, solid? Maybe 2 right hands, maybe, the whole fight? I don't think there's anything else that hit him solid. Maybe a flicking jab every now and then, but he almost came out of that ring virtually untouched, And when you're doing that, you're not putting any miles on the clock. So 38 doesn't mean anything. 38 would mean something if you weren't training, but he trains like an animal. Like he trains, and I've said this before, him or Lomachenko changed my thoughts on training a fighter when we used to be so concerned, trainers used to be so concerned with overtraining. These guys don't even understand it. That's not even in their vocabulary what that means, overtraining. These guys work hard, and that's why he has the engine that he has, and that's why he can set the pace that he has, because he works at it. And it's not just a case of, sparring, we did sparring today, that's all we're doing, No, there's more work to do after sparring's done.
Is it true that he does up to maybe 15 rounds of 3-minute sparring, or sometimes 4-minute rounds?
4-minute rounds, yeah.
Up to how many?
15. We've
50 4-minute rounds.
With 30 seconds rest.
That's a pretty crazy pace.
I've seen both of them do it.
There you go. So that's the Ukrainian school.
I've seen both of them hold their head underwater for over 3 minutes. Underwater for 3 minutes.
So there's different training techniques you've picked up over the years by watching their training as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, when you look at what's next for Usyk, some people said, retirement. But look, clearly he doesn't want to retire. He likes to compete.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though he's accomplished so much with some of the bigger names, there's lesser profile names, though, are still very entertaining fights. I like Joseph Parker. I get Caballel as potential challengers to Usyk.
But in both dangerous fights as well.
So there you go. There's good fights to be made.
Absolutely there is. Absolutely there is. I was thinking before this fight, it's time to ride off into the sunset. And I certainly wouldn't be upset with him if he did. I would actually go and visit him if he's in Ukraine or wherever he's with the war and everything. I would actually go, even if he stopped fighting, I would go because I want to spend time with him, and I like to have my Usyk fix a couple of times a year. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's good for my soul, and to be around a man of that kind of principle, and it's good for me to be there, and I catch a spark being around him. And that's important for me. But the way he looked now, like you're thinking, okay, well, let's just be like Joe Louis and hold on to the title for 12 years, and knock out everybody they put in front of you. Why not? But he's not showing any signs of aging, and he's still winning.
But he's fighting also the best in the division. He's not taking any tune-up fights ever.
No, that's the thing. That's a big difference, yeah.
Do you think Joseph Parker's next?
Next what?
Opponent.
I don't know. If he's the next best guy, I think he's the next best guy. I think he's the next best guy, and I think Caballel might be a close second. But Parker's got experience now as well. Parker's got experience to go along with the talent. So he's well trained, good fighter. I like Joseph a lot. Yeah. I was really touched by Joseph. I hope he gets to see this, but I know he probably won't. We were at the press conference, and if anybody out there watches this and you have contact with Joseph Parker,
aren't you friends with Andy Lee?
Of course.
I'm sure you can send him. We'll send him the clip.
We can send that to Andy, yeah. He was doing a scrum and getting interviewed, and I was with somebody, and they said, okay, time to go. I said, oh, hang on, I got to say hi to Joseph. As soon as he finished with one interview, there's a whole bunch of people wanting to talk to again. He just walked through everybody, came over and hugged me. And he says, I want my chance. I said, well, I don't want you, though. I don't want you.
It's an interesting fight. It's definitely an interesting fight. I think that would be one that would make a lot of sense. The name, though, that's being thrown out there from a fan's perspective.
Don't say it.
Well,
please don't say it.
See him. I don't know if we'll see him in the shot there. Maybe Kevin there with the frame. But Fury wants to come back and wants to have a third fight, and there's a lot of people who want to see it.
But Matt, would you like me to get you Canelo? Would you take the Canelo money? Would you, if I got you Canelo?
Yes, I would make 175 and take my beating against Canelo.
Correct.
But Fury fought Usyk twice. I never fought Canelo. What does that have to do with anything?
Meaning that, of course, you want the guy who has all the belts. That's the fight you want. Really? That's what everybody wants. Every contender in the division wants that. Why do you get it? Why? Because you say you should have won those two fights. That's your merit for getting a third fight. You've already had 24 rounds. I don't have anything against Fury he wants to fight because he wants to fight again for the title and wants all 4 belts. Okay, earn your worth to get back into a title contention. Joseph Parker has earned his worth to get into title contention. He's earned it. Caballel has earned his worth to get into a position to fight for the heavyweight championship. You're coming off 2 losses. That makes you earn the fight to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world? I don't think so.
The other part that's kind of crazy in the heavyweight landscape that I want to touch on some of the other topics is that after the Usyk win, who was there, ringside, Jake Paul, who goes into the ring, does a face-off, I think a friendly. He gave a lot of praise to Usyk. He talks about wanting to be a cruiserweight or maybe a small heavyweight. And Eddie Hearn and everybody in the UK last week is talking about Joshua, Jake Paul.
I know.
Anthony Joshua against Jake Paul might actually be a thing. If that happens, Russ, do you think it's the one fight that Jake Paul will regret taking?
I can't see it happening, Matt. I have a real
Eddie Hearn in Turkey and Jake Paul. You think this is just hype for now?
Man, I wouldn't want that. Would you want that blood on your hands to put for all the money and for all the tea in China, if you will, to put that on your hands that you could potentially get somebody killed?
You think the discrepancy between Joshua and Jake Paul at this point, even though Jake Paul is coming off a win against Chavez Jr.?
Chavez Jr., yeah. Okay, now he's got that.
Jake Paul is convinced that Anthony Joshua is beatable by knockout because he has a questionable chin, and Tyson Fury actually thinks Jake Paul would beat Anthony Joshua. He's on record as saying so.
Say that again?
You didn't hear this last week?
Say it again.
Tyson Fury says he's going to bet his own personal money on Jake Paul winning by knockout against Anthony Joshua.
Wow. Really, huh?
Okay, well, the thing is that...
Wow. I mean, that just solidifies the fact of the delusional thinking that he's got going on in his head then, right? So him claiming that he watched the Usyk Fury fight 250 times, that's a lie, you know, because I know you
250 times.
Yeah, I know you don't sit there and watch a fight 250 times. I love boxing. I love nothing more than boxing. I can't watch anything 250 times. Literally 250 times and see myself winning each time. And now you say something like that, you know. So I think you're proving a little bit, you know, that you're not. It's not really honest what you're saying.
You're in a believe it when you see it mode for Joshua, Jake Paul. But we live in a world where Eddie Hearn was saying the same thing. Never would have thought a few years ago, but it looks like there's so much. It would probably be, as crazy as it sounds, the biggest fight in boxing from a marketing standpoint, even though it wouldn't necessarily be compared to like a Canelo Crawford that I think every boxing fan wants to see.
If a boxing commission allowed that fight to happen, then we should just disband boxing commissions and we don't need them anymore. Just let them show up on the night of a fight, put a referee in the ring and 3 judges.
Is it worse than McGregor-Mayweather?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Yeah, I think it's worse than...
Conor McGregor had never fought professional boxing. He was a UFC MMA fighter.
He was.
Jake Paul has now fought for a few years boxing, is now in the rankings at cruiserweight.
Okay, he's fought in boxing. Okay, apparently he's not. Apparently they said that they're taking him out of those.
Well, I think there's a little bit of debate. That's still going on. It's not a done deal.
So, you know, I don't know. I bet you if Conor McGregor had fought those same kind of fights in boxing, same type of opponents, he'd also be ranked in the top 15 in the world. So, no, I think I think it might be worse. I think Conor McGregor had probably a better background in boxing than Jake.
Yeah, we'll see. Listen, if that happens, because Anthony Joshua is in the mix for potentially Tyson Fury. There's a lot of those are the bigger heavyweight profile matchups that people are talking about. But Usyk now, I think for sure you're looking either a Joseph Parker next, unless somehow Fury's back in the fold.
I have a feeling that there could be. If one thing I have a feeling about is that there could be so much money thrown at Usyk that he's going to have to say yes to potentially a Fury fight, maybe. The thing that just bothered me was, you know, Fury saying, I want a fair fight in the UK. How did that make that fair? You know, I want a fair fight in the UK. The fair fight was on neutral territory. But
Usyk now, you seem to be loved by UK fans.
Yeah, and I think he would go into that ring cheered more than Tyson Fury in the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
At this stage of both of their careers.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the other fights you've been involved with, because Usyk now is considered, I know the pound-for-pound debate, whether heavyweights are allowed in, whatever, but he's considered one of the better fighters in the world right now. Crawford, Inoue, but Shakur Stevenson is up there as well.
Oh, man.
And we're coming off, not even 2 weeks ago, big win against Zepeda that you referenced earlier. Your experience with Shakur Stevenson and some of the talents you've seen ringside or from the corner, he must be right up there.
Right up there as great. Now, let's be careful about something. When we talk about pound for pound, and when I talk about the greatness of a fighter, how good somebody is, the first thing I want to look at is their technical expertise, you know, their style, how they fight offensively, defensively, how they control a ring, how technically perfect their footwork is, their punching technique, their combinations that they throw. That's what I look at in a great fighter. That's why I've always loved Lomachenko. That's why I like even Mayweather, you know, when he was technically perfect, you know, he was technically perfect at what he did. And that means a lot to me. When you look at guys like the original Sugar Ray Robinson, everything about you can think of about boxing, Sugar Ray Robinson did better than anybody before or after, better than any human that ever lived, technically. So, watching Shakur work, watching him against a fighter like Zepeda, who stayed on him nonstop and kept trying, and watching him deflect punches, making Zepeda miss literally by inches, and counter-punching so quickly with perfect precision and a balance on his feet that was extraordinary. Man, I put him right up there as one of the most technically perfect fighting machines in the game today, without a doubt.
And he won over a lot of fans with his performance against Zepeda, that's showing that he was able to stay in the pocket and exchange as well.
Yep.
And when you look at Shakur Stevenson, his progression, how is your relationship with him in terms of what do you think? Do you have any idea of what he wants to do next? He's a 135-pound champion now.
Yep.
but you think he could eventually do enough with his style to become a bona fide superstar like maybe a Mayweather was?
I don't see any reason why he can't. I mean, he's got the look, he's got the smile, he's got the dimple, he's got the explosiveness, he's got the speed, he's got everything to do that. If he focused on trying to be the entertainer, if you will, or the crowd pleaser, not so much anything, but the crowd pleaser, the way he did in this fight, or the way Usyk does, just letting his fists do the talking in the ring and just letting himself be respected by the performances he puts on in the ring and not by what he says outside it. If he focuses on that, man, this guy has the same makings, the same makeup as a Ray Leonard, as a Sugar Ray Leonard, in terms of what the fans will see as a explosive fighter with blinding speed, great defensive ability, brings action, throws punches for 12 rounds nonstop, and you can't hit him with a handful of rice.
And that's the other part sometimes, Russ, that maybe goes unappreciated by some of the more casual fans. And you've mentioned this before with other fighters. When you're technically as proficient as Shakur Stevenson is, or even defensively excellent fighters, right? Andre Ward, Bernard Hopkins come to mind. We talked about Mayweather earlier. Sometimes they don't necessarily enjoy it as much because they don't understand what he's doing in there, but you appreciate that, and defense is the number one skill set to have because it's the most difficult skill set to obtain.
But I think the difference, like of the guys you named, and then add Usyk, Loma, Shakur to that mix, Benitez. When you have that defensive ability, but you still have an explosive offense as a result of that defensive ability, I think the fans love you. It's when you have the great defensive, but you still remain a conservative type fighter, then I think the fans turn off. But when you have that defensive ability, but you're still explosive and you're taking advantage of every offensive opportunity that presents itself, I think the fans love you.
Well, Shakur Stevenson would be recently. He wasn't always seen as taking every offensive chance.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That was probably the knock against him, was that he was outclassing guys that he probably could have blitzed and didn't, and now he was forced to fight against Zepeda, and he had to fight for 12 rounds, and he kept finding another gear, catching another gear, and throwing blistering combinations. The round would be close, equally competitive, one guy defensive, one guy throwing, and then all of a sudden, he just caught something, and bam, 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 a 4, 5, 6 punch combination that landed clean, and bang, that got him the round. Very closely contested rounds, but he won 10 of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you see him against Tank Davis as the fight to make?
That would be a great fight. That would probably be, I would say that's probably your lightweight version, at least for these modern times, of Ali Fraser.
Really? That you're going to go that big?
Well, in terms of styles of the fights. In terms of style, devastating puncher, Tank is a devastating puncher, and a brilliant, unhittable boxer who's smooth as silk, and in Shakur Stevenson. That is the quintessential matchups of boxing. So I think you'd be getting that. I can't go wrong with that.
One of the questions we have from fans here before we let you go, Russ, from some of the topics is that every time there's kind of hand-wrapped questions or controversies, people like to have your expertise on this. You were in New York State Athletic Commission for 2 consecutive weeks. We had, of course, the MVP all-woman card that featured Sugar Neeks and Amanda Serrano against Katie Taylor. Then you were with Shakur Stevenson. And on that same card, there was the Edgar Berlanga-Hamza Sharz fight. And Berlanga's camp saw pictures afterwards of the gauze of Hamza Sharz and maybe questioned whether or not there was something tampered with. Can you explain from just what you saw in those the pictures and how the process is with the New York State Athletic Commission?
I don't know what they saw. Like, looking at the pictures, I'm not sure what they were looking at to lead them to believe that there was something tampered with. First of all, if you look at the pictures, there was 4 black dots which were on the knuckle portion of the glove, which is put there by the inspector of the New York State Athletic Commission. And then you had the big black marker, which said New York State Athletic Commission over the top of it. In order for that to happen, and I do have a suggestion for you in a second, but in order for that to happen, both the commission has to accept the manner in which the bandages were done, and a member of Berlanga's team was in there to witness this, just in case the inspector would miss something that's going on. So you technically had 2 people in there, one from the opposing camp, one from the commission, making sure that everything was Catholic as heck, everything was going to be done properly, right? So looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, why are you complaining that there's something wrong with that? The answer is because he was devastating with the left hook. And that was the...
Was that what they said on record?
Something like that, yeah. He didn't take off that hand, and that Berlanga normally is a tough guy and withstood what Canelo threw at him, but couldn't withstand. Listen, Hamza Sharz is a very, very good fighter and a big puncher, a strong, hard puncher. Ask Carlos Adames how strong a puncher he is. He's a strong puncher. I didn't see anything there that justified them saying that, and that's something that bothers me. But I will say this.
So what's your suggestion then?
My suggestion is this. And this is an easy suggestion. The opposing team should have to sign off on the hand wrap. So once you do it, the commission signs off. The member from the opposing team who has witnessed this should also sign off. And when you get in the ring, you know that those are or when they take the gloves off, you know that those were the hand wraps you signed off on. If there's anything, if there's tape over it, your signature or whatever, then you would know that something was tampered with.
Oh, you mean that somebody could have done something after the signature?
Well, they couldn't because, like I said, everything is there indicating that they didn't.
But it doesn't change the fact that if you don't know and you get fooled by the inspection yourself, it could happen that you're in the locker room and something happens where you don't even know yourself and you sign off on it. And you've been tricked. That could happen.
Sure, that could happen. But then how would you tell that from a picture? How would you tell that from a picture on the ring?
Right.
How would you if you got fooled while it was happening? Oh no, but we saw the picture after. We caught you. What did you see? What did you catch? What is the tampering? What is done?
Did you, in your
That's
career?
What bothered me.
Okay, so in your career,
done.
Russ, have you ever been there as a witness to something and then you caught something? Or
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because many times you're busy yourself wrapping hands, so you don't go into the opponent locker room.
This happened in a fight with Arthur Beterbiev, fighting Callum Johnson, I think.
Really?
I think it might have been the fight against Callum Johnson. I got to the venue early, and Joe Gallagher wanted to get Callum Johnson wrapped before the fight. And he needed somebody to be there. And I was the only one that had arrived yet at the venue early enough. And I won't mention names, but this famed person was wrapping Callum Johnson's hands. And they took, I don't know if you've seen those swabs, but they're round dowels of cotton that a dentist would use. They put them in your mouth around. And they stuck them in between the fingers and then continued with the hand wrap. And I said, well, now that's not right, So I pulled Joe Gallagher over and I said, Joe, look, I don't want to make a big deal about this, but... Like, I'm going to have to tell Mark, that this happened. Like, this can't go on. I mean, you should ask the inspector, but I'm going to have to ask the inspector to take a look at that and see if they can do that because, you can't do that. You can't stick, dowels in between the knuckles. And Inspector came over and said, no, I said, you can't use that. Just gauze. And they had to remove it. And so I have caught that,
And that, to be clear, that with the sweat could accumulate, could be an extra advantage?
Probably not. I don't know if it would be an advantage or not. It's a piece of cotton. As it gets wet, it would probably get soggy, just like the gauze bandages do. But the point is, you're only allowed gauze and tape. You're not allowed gauze, tape, and cotton dowels. You're not allowed
right. I get it.
So you're not allowed to put that in there. Might not have done nothing. There was a time I was with this I can take because it was years ago. I was working in Toronto a fight with Brian Mackey when he fought Ian McKillop. You know Ian McKillop. He's coming here. You know Brian Mackey. And Howard Grant was wrapping Ian McKillop. And I know that Howard, his pad that he used to use back then used to be like a Tampax pad, and he'd put that and then wrap. And I knew that you couldn't do that. So I just asked the inspector to go over and take a look and see, what if they use it. And when they looked at the bandage, they saw that it is, so they made him cut it off and do it all over again.
Howard knows you.
Howard knows this. Of course, Howard knows this.
How did that go over?
I don't know. Ian was mad. You can ask Ian about it. But it was just a question of like, it wasn't what you're allowed to use, and you're only allowed to use. And I don't believe in stacking. I don't believe in tape on the skin. I just believe in gauze, tape, magic marker. That's it. That's That's the order, and it's simple. Don't change anything. In the UK, they said, okay, you're allowed 3 strips of tape on the back of the hand, 3 strips of tape but none on the wrist. 3 strips and I'm thinking, like, how did you come up with this rule? Like, under what scientific data did you come up with that said that 3 strips is okay? 4? Oh no, 4, don't do that. That's dangerous. Or 2, oh, no, can't do that. But 3 you can do. Like, I don't know how you come up with that. But I always thought that when you leave yourself open to these kind of things, it just makes for ambiguous areas, and there shouldn't be. Gauze, tape, magic marker. Thank you very much. Simple. So I believe in that. So yeah.
Any parting shots, Russ? Anything you want to leave your? I think at times, even back in the day when you had your show in this corner, you had like a final. Forget the exact name.
Well, actually, the final flurry was what it was. It was final flurry. So that's up to you to ask me the questions, and I give you the rapid
so I
fire
get more
answers.
questions from the fans for rapid fire.
You'll have to get more of that. But listen, I think this weekend was a great night to be involved with. I had a lovely little chat in the center of the ring with Frank Warren, who, obviously, disappointed that his guy lost. But I said, Frank, you've had every contender for the last few years who's fighting for the heavyweight title. And you've done pretty good, I think, Frank. You've done pretty good. He started laughing, So and he might have the next one.
That's right. That's right. And not to mention that he has a young, up-and-coming heavyweight prospect that many see as maybe one of the future in Moses Atoma.
Yeah.
So, look, the heavyweight division has been doing much better now for a good part, I'd say. It's in the Wilder, Joshua, Fury, Usyk era.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of good fights, a lot of good contenders facing each other. I look forward to the future. Russ, I'm very happy also for you on a personal level to get to enjoy this moment. It's pretty cool that you work with 2 of the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters, maybe even top 5 in the last few weeks. And,
not bad. I'm Shakur, whenever he messages me, he said, my guy. I said, okay, yeah, my guy. What's happening? So, it's good. Working with him was fun. Working with his granddad has been a truly great experience. Granddad and Jack and the rest of the team, but those 2 guys that work the corner with me, they're really a pleasure to work with. We've got everything down to a real good science in the corner, and it's a pleasure to work with them. And even though it's only been 2 fights, the reception I've had from them has been really, really nice, and I really appreciate being a part of that.
We'll be able to do another one of these podcasts, of course, in the coming weeks. And thank you again for tuning in, everyone. We'll have some more rival-related questions in the future, but felt like it was needed with all the boxing activity happening the last few weeks. Able to touch base, and please feel free to leave a comment, share on Instagram if you want, different social media. This one will be available, the full version on YouTube. Mr. Anber, we'll talk later.
Thanks, Matt.